I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today a bit about a turning point, as well as our productive quadrants that we function in, and a bit of the change model. So when we hear the word turning point, a number of us know that that was the time or the day or the situation that caused a change in our lives. And after long thought and discussion with some people, I've realized that we create a turning point when we take proactive action, and that proactive action triggers the change that we need in our lives. So one of the analogies of a turning point is to think about a traffic circle. When you're on a particular path or particular street or lane, and you enter that traffic circle, you can go into it, and there are more than one option that you can exit that particular traffic circle. And what I find is sometimes we're in the wrong lane, and people relate some stories where they needed to go left on a particular thing, and then they had to go all around the circle, but they were still in the wrong lane, so they had to go around the circle one more time to get in the right lane to exit at the right exit. And sometimes that is how our life is. Our life is sometimes in a situation where we enter and we need to take decisions, and sometimes we take the wrong decision and we end up in a path that we don't want to be in, and then we need to go all the way back to the starting point. But when it gets to our lives, it is a moment where we can actually stop where we're at, and we can change everything by looking at the dynamics, by being triggered with the need that we need to adjust or change. And then we can process that information, and we can design this process where a lot of people fall short is that they don't take the action, because that is what's necessary, is to take that proactive action that will then bring the change. And once the change kicked in, then you actually need to look all over again at the trigger and what it triggers, because a change will always trigger something new in our lives. Some of us wants to be in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, we get married, and then we get that, and then you find out, ooh, here's a new kettle of fish altogether, because now there are many new triggers we didn't feel or know about, and then we have to analyze and process that all over again, and then take the appropriate actions. And so in the productivity quadrants, which is just about my shoulder, I like to just identify the 4 quadrants of the productivity quadrants. The first one is the learner in the bottom corner. So in the bottom corner, when you look at it on your left, we have the newness curve. We have the learner who just comes in, exploring something, and they learn by doing. Sometimes we're very afraid in that particular area to explore opportunities or to explore possibilities, but that's exactly what we're supposed to do there. Is we're supposed to look at how we can produce something. And the change model, that's the time where we analyze things and we process things, try things out, and then we actually decide how we're going to move forward. And it's all goes well, but what happens then is we spiral in sometimes that spiral curve that you see just above the newness curve. So it's still in the left top quadrant, where we spiral away from the actual thing that we wanted to do, and we end up doing something we think we are supposed to do, but we're not supposed to. So I know Bruce always teases me when he gives me something to go and read up on something, whatever he goes, now don't go down that rabbit hole and go and find out everything about it. I just need you to know about it. Because I can waste an awful lot of time doing that. And so I've learned over years or so that sometimes we start with something, and then inevitably we do something completely different. We had a particular line of service where people could make phone calls, and they were given some advice on the phone lines. Actually, I know 2 phone lines that ended up actually getting sponsorship, and the sponsorship and their agendas caused them to veer completely away from what they originally designed, and they end up being actually just a social development department face that actually developed something completely different, and they became a non-profit organization instead of the very line that took the phone calls and made the phone calls. So sometimes, but what I also saw with companies and organizations, they whip us away, or they took us away in corporate spaces, take us through all this planning and everything, and then and there was this whole rah-rah going on, and this is now the new strategy going forward. And then when you get the Monday or the Tuesday to your desk, it's the same old work. Now you're still behind because you were out of office as well, and nothing really changed. And that time was not time that really necessarily helped. Sometimes companies do come up with beautiful designs. It's working and it's effective. But sometimes people come up with something. And I remembered somebody approached me one day and he said he wanted to change his career. And I said to him, why? And he said he hates what he's doing. Because when he joined and when he looked at the job description, he was going to be involved with sales, interacting with customers. He's an area manager, and he was going to interact with his sales force. And now he has to sit and write all these wonderful reports, and he turned into a glorified administrator. So he wanted to design because he didn't want to do that anymore. And it was on investigation, I found out he's a cheerful person who just wants to, if you look at his productive environment, he loves to work with people, and he's not really well suited for the administrative kind of work. And so we found some people in his team who support him, and they love to do that. So I said to him, right, on Fridays, get them to write reports for you and get them to tell you what went well, what's the successes, but also what are the things they're concerned about and how can we mitigate it, or what can we do about it to mitigate it? And so they started to churn in that information out to his desk on a Friday afternoon. And these people also enjoy loving giving feedback of what they enjoy doing, successes and concerns, and then recommendations. And often the practical people are actually giving the real solution that will work. So on the Monday morning, when he got back to his office after the first Friday, we made a little template, folded in, and within minutes, he was back on the road, and he was actually driving around because he just copy-pasted all that information into a template, sent it off to management, and they thought he was very clever to do that report and could not understand what happened to him. But all that happened to him is he turned into a self-leader, and that is that success curve, the top quadrant at the top. So what I didn't speak to at the bottom was, you can see that typical bell curve that forms where people just feel loaded and totally overloaded, or where people actually get going with the right thing they're supposed to do, but then they discover, have this output, I write this report, but I really hate it, and I really don't enjoy it. But it's more or less in the same direction, because if you look at the lines as well, is that we want to go from a low value to a high value. So at least we want to make money, or we want to do quantities. We want to go from 0 to maybe 1 million. But at the same time, we also have the output, and that the output is from the left to the right on that output line, where we want to measure the results, and we want to look at something to see if we're actually on target or not. Okay, so our ideal is to create that S-curve. Now that S-curve that you see there, the green one, is the typical success curve that most businesses speak about. And that is when you actually plan something, you actually process something, and now you took action, and you are successful in achieving what you planned. And so what happened is he was so overloaded and overwhelmed by those reports, but by just shifting and bringing a small change, that turning point, to put him into the S-curve line. And there are great opportunities to also look at some other people and what happened, but I just want to talk quickly and briefly about the change model and its dynamics. So when we start out, and we are triggered by something, sometimes we need to also establish whether we triggered on the inside, but something that we actually can change, whether it's us who need to change on the inside, or whether we triggered by something from the outside that is really just not working for us, and that needs to be confronted and need to be addressed. At the same time, we need to stand up for ourselves and also lead ourselves. So sometimes the only change that's required is we need to learn to be a bit more disciplined, or we need to stop procrastinating. And that is the time that we need to go in that S-curve where we turn into a leader that can lead ourselves into that success. But sometimes we also something happened that we actually be the victim of poor decision-making management. And I want to give you another example of this situation, because that will help you to see the situation of the quadrants, and then that turning point right in the center where we can wear away, we can go back to the turning point to take new decisions, or we could just take a new decision and that will put us on a new direction. Recently, my New York customer asked me in a throwaway statement that just said, don't you want to just see what our missed call rate looked like? I do a bit of quality assurance for them. And in the process, I discovered it's horrific. It's 39% of the incoming calls, and I took thousands of calls, went missing. And they weren't answered. And then at the same time, I decided to take it one step further and to see who's responsible for these missed calls. And then I ranked them to find out only two people are causing all these missed calls. But what I then did is I looked at their job description and I started to identify that management thought they would have been able, and this is not typically sparring away from the reality, right? Management thought they can do incoming calls and they can do outgoing calls as schedulers, but their job, and they get paid to be on the phone and to schedule interviews and to schedule meetings and to schedule all sorts of things. So they have an agenda and they have a list of people they want to target, and while they're on the call, they miss the call. So to cut a long story short, I showed them what I've discovered. Now, what's wonderful about these people is they recognized it and they immediately went into the change model to respond to that. But I want to talk to you about the top and the bottom right corner. The two people, the schedulers, they always felt they were failing because they had this huge number of missed calls against their name and they couldn't change it because while they're on the line, they're missing a call and they were totally out of control, right? And so management got together and they all got the players together in that turning point, discussed it, and then they came up with a solution, identified two other people who could take the incoming calls and who could then respond to the calls as they came in. So the second month when I monitored it, they dropped down to 17% missed calls. And now in the month of October, that just lapsed. They've tweaked it a little bit more even. And they've also started to look at the quality of the calls that came in and who made those phone calls to them. And on the last day of October, we stood on only 13 missed calls, 13 missed calls. And so they then projected themselves on a very good telephone incoming and outgoing call rate, turned that whole situation into a success story. And now they actually get all their phone calls and they get to respond to the phone calls, and you could see it in the quality of their placement rate. They were, beginning of October, standing on 1. Later on week 3, they were standing on only 3 placements. We ended with 11 placements at the end of the month. And it's just now that's what I've spoken about, the trigger, that you get going, and then once you've established the new situation, then it triggers something new. And what triggered there is because of the quality calls that came in and the people who called in again and missed the schedulers' calls, they were able to be contacted in time to actually process them into the interview process, and they were placed. Hence the reason why the placement numbers then went up. So if you look at these kind of aspects of your business, you can also look at your own personal life in terms of when you start out, how often do you actually do actively those things that will get you on the S-curve? Now, this week I saw something interesting. Somebody actually looked at the 9 dimensions of the task. I always talk about the 9 dimensions: what, why, when, how, who the dependencies, where you're going to do it, why you're going to do it, as well as the duration, and to actually work out all that details of the particular task that needs to be done, especially if you want to hand it over to somebody else to do. And so this person employed somebody, and she took the task she's going to do and she wrote the exact detail out for all those 9 dimensions. And what was fascinating is the clear instruction that went with that. And so both people, their success rate, or the opportunity for success rate, is much greater than just saying, oh, you need to do the marketing. Now the marketing is defined. I want you to do the marketing this way. And this is the end result I'm looking for. And this is where I want you to do it. This is how I want you to do it. And in all that detail being clarified, both people feel more confident that it can be achieved, and they can measure the performance against that particular detailed expectation. And coming to a close, I would like to just mention a situation, one of our banks on a helpline. I was doing a bit of a business intelligence reporting, and we noticed that one of the particular people, that her count, a call count, very low. It was really, really low. And they asked me before they want to fire her, can I just maybe spend time with her at a desk and just see what's happening, how she's processing things, what's she doing? While I was sitting at her, I noticed that every time she ends the call, she made some attempt to sell something, but the others didn't do that. And I asked the others eventually, like, are you supposed to sell something? And they went, like, yes. And I said, why aren't you selling something? And they were like, I have to already do this impossible goal, and there's no way I'm still going to waste my time trying to sell something as well. I have a target, and if I want to get paid. And so you can see management took a helpline, and what they've done is they slapped some sale in there, and that's the spiraling away from the actual course there. They were just a help desk, helping with inquiries within the bank. And then somebody wanted to tuck some retailing in there, okay? And so what happened is this lady was under the bell curve because she could not reach her targets, and she already had written warnings. But the guys who led themselves and said, no, hold on, I have this target and I need to meet this target. They just went like, nope, dream on. My job description said I have to respond to inquiries. And so they were successful. They were on the S curve. And what happened then is I took this lady to the turning point, where we then realized she was actually just doing what they were told in the morning in the meetings, because every meeting they were encouraged to sell a particular something during the day. And when I showed that to management, we went to scramble for the reports of sales that we then found her name. We found her name on the list, and she actually was successful. She made up to 6 sales a day. They made it good to her, where they restored her. They took all the warnings away from her desk. But what they've also done is that they've recognized the talent to actually be in retail selling things. So they promoted her. And what they've also done is all the earnings that she missed out and the sales that she achieved, they paid it out to her. In fairness, they paid it out to her. And so today, when you maybe look at your life and you look at this quadrants, you might recognize yourself where you feel, I'm spinning. And it's possible that you're in the spiral graph, where you feel like I'm spinning, but it's possible that you're in the lost graph, there in that bell curve, where there's a lot of up, but it's not the direction where you're supposed to be. Maybe you look at your life today and you feel like, no, Marie, I'm on target. I am going in the direction where I want to be. And I am achieving what I want to achieve. Okay, so I want to just mention to you again that the turning point in your life happens when you take proactive action. But that proactive action will be triggered by good analysis of what you're being triggered by. And once you've identified it, you then need to take action. And you know, sometimes if I say, for instance, I want to take this, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, it's my hand. I want to take my hand, but I keep on taking it miss. That's a mistake. mistake, right? All you need to do is you have to keep on taking until you take the thing that you want to take. And so stop condemning yourself for the mistakes. Sit down, analyze what you want to do properly. Work out a proper plan, what you're going to action, and then take action. Stop procrastinating, playing games. You lead yourself out of your mess, or lead yourself into a situation where you take those proactive steps. And when you do that, you will find that change will kick in. It might not be the change you're looking for, right? Change will kick in if you take action. But it will give you the opportunity to evaluate again, to analyze again, to reprocess that information. And then once you've got that, then you'll be able to look at the new triggers and to respond to that. So I hope that this productive quadrants will bring change to your life and will enable you to just look at things differently, and maybe also stop self-condemnation that is happening in your own heart and mind. And then I just wanted to know, I wanted to share with you that in the chat, I have placed a link where you'll be able to book a coaching call with me, or a link where if you just want to have a conversation with me, it's free of charge. I don't charge for it. Where if you maybe just want to process something that you heard I'm saying today, I'm happy to be available afterwards. I've also posted my email in there. And that is really just an invitation to have a conversation. It's not a sales call, okay? And then I'm hoping that you'll be able to create lots of turning points in your life that will trigger the change you need.